Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Ankit Tyagi with NDTV. The top two stories of the day at this moment that we are talking about, of course, the briefing by the Indian Armed Forces exposing Pakistan's lies and the surreal world, the make-believe world that the Pakistanis are living in as far as the successes of Operation Sindoor is concerned. The other big story in just less than an hour now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's first address on Operation Sindoor. Remember, this is the first time that the Prime Minister would be speaking after India commenced punitive action on Pakistan under Operation Sindoor on the night of 7th of this month, while Pakistan and punitive action was taken on the terror infrastructure of Pakistan, and then the further escalation and how Indian Army responded to, in fact, safeguard the territorial integrity and safety of the people of this country. So both these very, very important events which are going to take place. I will first focus on what the press conference of the Director Generals of Operation of the Air Force, Army and the Navy, in fact, spoke about. They not only yesterday when they presented the proofs and visuals of the destruction that Pakistan had to face in India's punitive strikes. They also spoke about, our airfields and military installation, the safety of those, and they are completely operational, and the Indian Armed Forces are absolutely ready if there is any further escalation or any misadventure by Pakistan. Now, the DGMOs of both the countries, as it was discussed and decided earlier, have spoken. So we have a confirmation that the DGMO of India and Pakistan, as it was discussed earlier, the understanding which was arrived that they will speak on the 12th of May. They have spoken. We'll get you the details as soon as they in fact start trickling in. All our sources in the defense in the Indian Army have said that very soon we'll know exactly what the conversation was like. Remember, last evening was the first evening in the last few days that there was no significant action as far as the line of control, the international border and the skies, the airspace between India and Pakistan is concerned. Let me first very quickly play out for you at this moment some reactions and the press conference which was addressed earlier by Air Marshal A.K. Bharti, who in fact spoke about India's punitive strikes on Pakistan.
As you can see, we have targeted the length and breadth of the adversary. I'm sure most of you would have already seen the effect of these strikes on ground, courtesy the large number of videos and photographs being circulated in the media. A few representative examples from the open source are now being shown to you on the screen. In fact, two of them. This is the strike on the Noor Khan Air Base. And you can see the effect. I'm sure most of you have seen the video. I have also picked it up from your sources only. And this is the aftermath of our strike at Raimiar Khan Air Base. You can see the massive crater that it has left on its runway. And you can see the pinpoint accuracy of our weapons. So with that, giving you an overview of how our air defense systems have thwarted the enemy drones, their fighter aircraft, their missiles, and resulted in minimal losses on our side.
आतंकियों पर हमारे सटीक हमले लाइन ऑफ कंट्रोल और इंटरनेशनल बाउंड्री को पार करे बिना किए गए थे। हमें पूरा अंदेशा था कि पाकिस्तान का वार भी बॉर्डर के उस पार से ही होगा। इसलिए हमने अपनी एयर डिफेंस की पूरी तैयारी पहले से ही कर ली थी। हमारी इन्वेंट्री में शामिल काउंटर मैन्ड एरियल सिस्टम्स, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक वॉरफेयर के साधन और एयर डिफेंस वेपन्स का इंडियन एयरफोर्स के इसी प्रकार के सिस्टम्स के साथ एक अनोखा मिश्रण किया गया। इसलिए आपने देखा कि जब जब पाकिस्तान एयरफोर्स ने हमारे एयरफील्ड्स और लॉजिस्टिक इंस्टॉलेशंस में 9 और 10 मई की रात को लगातार हमले किए, वो इस मजबूत एयर डिफेंस ग्रिड के सामने विफल हो गए। तो कोई मौका नहीं था कि पाकिस्तान एयरफोर्स ये मल्टी टियर डिफेंस को पार करके पीछे हमारी एयरफील्ड्स या लॉजिस्टिक इंस्टॉलेशंस को टारगेट कर पाए।
We had a detailed brief on the successful joint operations that were carried out to destroy the terror infrastructure in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, as well as in Pakistan itself. We also iterated that our fight was with terrorists and their support infrastructure and not with Pakistan military. However, it is a pity that the Pakistan military chose to intervene and bat for the terrorist, which compelled us to respond in kind.
Our powerful carrier battle group with formidable offensive capability was able to operate with impunity and maintained an uncontested presence in the area of operations. Effectively, it compelled the Pakistani air elements to remain bottled up close to the Makran coast, denying any opportunity to be a threat in maritime space.
Let me very quickly at this moment bring in for more perspective on what we heard and how things are at this moment. I'm being joined by Air Marshal Anil Khosla, former Vice Chief of Air Staff. He's with us at this moment. So thank you for speaking to NDTV. Let me begin by asking you very, very comprehensive, detailed, press conferences and briefings by the DG operations of all the three wings of the armed forces. Particularly what stands out is two things, sir. Number one, India's capability, the integrated air defense system that worked with absolute wonders, as far as Pakistan's attacks were concerned, and how easily we were able to make these ingresses and attack Pakistani Air Force bases, sir.
It stands out both offensive and the defensive capabilities. And our capabilities have increased over in the last decade in leaps and bounds. And there are still gaps as far as capacity is concerned, but that is also being addressed. But if you see from Balakot to now, there's so much of difference in capability enhancement of the three services. And this is a classic, example of what is showing. It is showing. Air defense-wise, we've been able to neutralize whatever projectiles were thrown at us from across the border and LOC. Small or big, and there's no negligible damage on our side. And we have been able to engage their targets, military and terror, basically terror infrastructure, the ecosystem, at far ranges throughout their country. And with very great precision, with no collateral damage, and that with a big standoff ranges. That is the big message to Pakistan. If you notice, I'll just take 30 seconds more. The last strike which we did, where we got fed up of him escalating slowly, and we indicated, if you see what briefing has been given by the three DGMO, DGNO, and DG Air Ops, we targeted airfields all over Pakistan, even in the heart of Punjab, as far as Karachi and other places. So those red dots. And if you see, notice the type of targets, from runways to hangars to command control centers to AD radars to surface-to-air missile centers. If you see the kind of targets which have been, this indicates that we can take on every type of target system in your military targets.
Yes.
We can take on wherever you are. That is the message which went on.
I also want your expertise, sir, on the fact, like we were talking about the defensive capabilities. We'll come to the offensive one in just a moment. About how top class performance there has been, and especially of the indigenous air defense weapon systems like Akash, SAM and anti-drone systems, which are being manufactured, which are being made inside our own country, something that Pakistan dearly misses, isn't it? Everything that they have is exported largely from China, while our indigenous systems are also, have shown in this, at least in this skirmish, that they are top notch.
You're right. And if you see other wars also, Russia, Ukraine, as well as Israel, Hamas, two things stand out. One is that you have to be self-sufficient. You have to be Atmanirbhar. Nobody is going to come and nobody is going to give you latest technology. You have to have your own defense industry going so that you can scale up the production as and when required. And these, which the government has initiated, and a lot of results are showing. And these weapon systems which were inducted, the indigenous one, this was a baptism by fire, and they performed well. So I'm sure all the military as well as the defense industry is reading the occurrences very, very carefully, and they will improve on it, implement all the shortcomings or gaps if there are any. And the best part is that in future, our defense industry will grow and improve on all these weapons, and that is a good sign.
A big worry for India also is, of course, we share a very, I won't call it hostile at this moment, but of course, China standing on the other side, which is, of course, one of the biggest sponsors and supporter of Pakistan. What do you make of the largely Chinese weaponry that was on display from the Pakistani side, and the way we handle it? It also has lessons, if God forbids there is any conflict as far as China is concerned for us as well.
Yeah, so it's not only India. I think the whole world is looking for Chinese equipment and their performance, because the Chinese, country where there's a lot of enigma attached to it. It's a very, very secretive country, and there are a lot of claims have been made by China in every field, in terms of technology, in terms of weapon systems, in terms of platforms, in terms of equipment, and the performance which they claim that they are latest and they are better than even American or US weapons and systems. So the whole world is watching how will they perform, and the and Pakistan Army has almost whatever percentage you want to call it, 70-80 majority is Chinese equipment. So the whole world is watching, and so will we be. At the moment, the exact details are not there, and in public domain they shouldn't come out. Also, I think the military will study in detail how they have performed. And with our friend, we have a lot of friendly countries where we do exercises with this, and information will be exchanged with them, and we will come. The picture will become clearer that how they performed as compared to the rest of the world.
My last question to you, sir. As somebody who, of course, led the Indian Air Force, I just want to understand from you, what are the big takeaways for the Indian Air Force, from this conflict, and how are those going to be implemented if there is any escalation further from the Pakistani side?
At the moment, I think it's too early to draw conclusions. And once detailed analysis is done of the events, the Indian Air Force, I can tell you from my past experience, every event which happens, every exercise which takes place, and every live event like this which takes place, it is studied in detail, and the lessons are drawn at different levels, tactical level, strategic level, gaps in our equipment, and improvements required in organizational every aspect, under every vertical which is related to military operations. And these lessons are converted into to-do list and addressed and monitored till the time they are completed. So in this case also, the lessons will be drawn out. The biggest lesson at the moment, I think, which is not known also to everyone, and is that we have capability-wise, we have grown quite a bit. We have every type of capability. You've seen the example in terms of, reach, in terms of standoff, in terms of precision. All sort of capabilities. But capacity is another issue which we need to address, which everyone knows. That is a war endurance we need to improve, because we have a situation on both our borders which are not very, very user-friendly.
So thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to NDTV. Very important to learn from experts, because remember, every conflict, every war or any kind of exercise is also an occasion for the armed forces to build on from there, because every conflict then becomes very, very different. Let me also bring in at this moment Lieutenant General Rajinder Singh, former DG Infantry, and Lieutenant General Rameshwar Roy, Defence Analyst, former Corps Commander, Jammu and Kashmir. Gentlemen, thank you so much for speaking to us at this moment. Let me start with you, General Singh. What are your big takeaways, sir, as this conflict now, at least we have had one night of relative peace and calm across the line of control, the international border and of airspace. Now, there will be a lot of talk about what are the big lessons that the armed forces have drawn from this entire live action.
Ankit, the big takeaways, as I look at it, are actually mainly four of them. First and foremost is the takeaway about our decision-making process. It would be quite clear to Pakistan that India's decision-making will be swift and it will be firm. The second big takeaway is the might of the Indian armed forces, about the Air Force. Air Marshal Khosla has just now talked about. And I would only like to add one thing, that it clearly proved the efficacy of our integrated air defense system. It also proved the efficacy of our capability to go and strike deep into the enemy territory and take out their air assets. Another important facet, which was quite clear to one and all, is the fact that the kind of integration between the armed forces which we were able to achieve was quite evident. Now, the third important point was that in this operation, it was quite evident after seeing 100% strike on the enemy terrorist camps, that the intelligence that we got about those terrorist camps was absolutely top rate. We were able to pinpoint as to where the terrorists were located, and out of those 28 so-called terrorist camps, it was identified that in 9 of them these terrorists are located, and the pinpoint locations were given to the armed forces so that they could strike them. They could strike them with precision and with absolute professionalism and efficiency. The fourth and the last takeaway of this particular thing is that the nuclear bogey of Pakistan has been called. And I think Pakistan will know once and for all that it is not easy to take India for granted.
Lieutenant General Rameshwar Roy, it's very intriguing because there was a lot of, let me say, intrigue about the Turkish drone systems that were provided to Pakistan, and also the Chinese military hardware that Pakistan uses. In fact, many analysts were saying that the Turkish drones were one of the most feared across the army, across the military world, because what we saw, the kind of havoc that they reaped and the advantage that they gave Azerbaijan in their battle over Armenia. Now, that question of the Turkish drones have also been answered in many ways by the Indian air defense systems. It was waves and waves of Turkish drones coming towards India, which was more or less with almost 100% accuracy destroyed in air by the Indian air defense systems.
Ankit, first of all, no two battlefields can really be compared. How they performed in a particular theater is not a question that we should ask ourselves. Basically, the issue here is that our approach was very, very well thought out. I'll say not only thought out, but it was think through approach. we maintained our offensive capabilities. At the same time, we did not forget about defensive capabilities, that nothing would come on us. So what had happened was, as a result of all this, that we followed a multi-layer integrated air defense system alongside a very, very accurate intelligence information about the target acquisition and how those targets would be neutralized. I would say that from a arsenal that you have, a range that you have, you have to pick up the right kind of a weapon to deal with the right kind of a target. So I would say this matching of the weapon technology or the weapon to destruction of the target was so finely tuned that we left no scope for any errors in that. And that we must complement our tri-service organizations. It has been a complete integration of Army, Navy and the Air Force, one. Secondly, the men have shown an excellent technology absorption. Two, a very good intelligence system has backed up this entire operation through and through right until today. Fourth part is that while we have followed this approach, we did not let our guards down. So what has happened is that whatever we tried to destroy of the adversary, whatever adversary tried to throw on us to take on the targets on our side, we were well prepared for it. And not only that we were well prepared for it, we had integrated our systems in such a manner which so beautifully meshed with the kind of targets. Like if somebody feels that we would have fired a higher level weaponry for dealing with the drones, surely it was not the case. Because they are the low flying objects, therefore a lower kind of a active integrated defense system came into being. So what I'm trying to say is that this entire process was an example of think through process and not only thought through process.
Absolutely. Singh, let me bring you in on this, on the question of which is being debated across the country. Even former veterans have expressed their views on this topic. Should India have pressed forward when we had the upper hand as far as these punitive strikes on Pakistan is concerned? Was the ceasefire, understanding reached a little too early for India's comfort?
No. As far as my opinion is concerned, I think before we come to the answer to this particular question, it is pertinent to see as to what was our initial objective that we had set for ourselves. We had set for ourselves our initial objective of going and striking the terrorist camps and undertaking a kind of an operation which is non-escalatory. It was not our intention to escalate this to a level more than what we were trying to do, that is to target the terrorist camps. Now, the reason that why we had to go and strike deep, the reason why we had to strike multiple targets of Pakistan and also some of their vital air bases was because of the actions of Pakistan, that they were trying and targeting our civilians, they were targeting our various military installations, and they were trying to actually widen the scope of contest. So when that was taking place, we had to resort to our punitive measures, in which we were 100% successful. It forced Pakistan to go and seek for ceasefire immediately. I think it was the right time for us to accept that particular plea of the Pakistan entity. I don't think anything more would have come had we carried on with this conflict.
I think one debate is very well settled. When two countries fight, and if after your punitive strikes, the other country doesn't have the capability to hit back or respond, if not more, but in equal measure, that very clearly tells you who has had the last word as far as that conflict is concerned. And in this case, of course, that's India. But Lieutenant General Roy, if I may bring you in at this moment, sir, I just want to understand from you, because we saw many things different, and like you said, no two conflicts or no two theaters are same. But a marked change from what we saw, even in the information warfare post Balakot and Uri surgical strikes this time, and specifically when the DGMOs came out and the Director Generals of Operations from all the three wings came out, we have seen how prepared this time we were for the narrative and the questions that were raised at that point of time as well.
Ankit, absolutely. Let me also say that, the biggest dilemma that the Pakistan had was that, we had mentioned after our strike on 7th of May that we have struck all the 9 terrorist camps, which were our target in response to their action of 22nd April. Now, Pakistan's dilemma was they did not have equivalent of those targets on our side because we don't have any terrorist camps here in our country. So they had no option but to go in for either the counter value targets that we have or the counter force targets that we have. Unfortunately, they went in for counter force targets, which are pure military targets, and they affect our operational capabilities. They did not know that our integration of all the 3 services was so complete this time that not only the Army and the Air Force, Navy itself was also deployed in the Bay of Arabian Sea. So we had the Army, Navy, Air Force fully coordinated in deployment mode, and therefore our response capability was from north to south, as is also evident even after we had struck the terrorist camp, the last one that is further down south of Bawalpur, which was well about 100 kilometers deep inside Pakistan territory. We also have struck Karachi ports because of our Navy deployment there and coordinating it with the Air Force. Therefore, the point I'm trying to make is that the range of targets that we had in Pakistan were much more in addition to the terrorist targets.
Right.
And Pakistan did a foolish thing of attacking our counter, not the counter value targets, but the counter force targets, which was affecting our force capability. Therefore, we had already told them. We told, in fact, all the 5 nations, that is United States, Russia, Britain, Saudi Arabia, and UAE, that look, we have carried out our action in 25 minutes in response to their action of 22nd April, which was done by the terrorists. Hereafter, if Pakistan does anything, they will be moving up the escalatory ladder, and therefore we have no hesitation in going up that ladder. Yes, apparently it appeared that when we moved on that ladder, that the Army, Navy, and the Air Force, all 3 integrated forces got the momentum that we wanted.
Right.
Now the point is, should we keep up that momentum? And the momentum was halted by the ceasefire. But the point is, we already in a way had achieved our objectives, and leadership of the country is very resolute, and they had very clearly told the world that, look, we have achieved our aim. If hereafter Pakistan does anything, they have to be punished, and they are then going overboard.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what happened.
One thing is very clear, that a new Lakshman Rekha, new red line, and the complete change of rule of engagement as far as Pakistan is concerned has been drawn in the current context with Operation Sindoor, and the line that Pakistan had, or the long rope that they had, that has been shortened. The response is going to be swift if there is any, once again, the same kind of act of terror which is repeated on Indian soil, whether it is perpetrated by the Pakistani army or elements controlled by them. There is going to be a big cost that Pakistan will have to pay. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with me this evening. With that, we are slipping into a short break. On the other side, we'll shift our focus completely on the other big event, ladies and gentlemen. In just about 40 minutes from now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to address the nation, his first address to the nation on Operation Sindoor, post-Operation Sindoor. Remember, the Prime Minister has been closely watching the events. Now it is his time to speak to the nation at 8 p.m.